Rain hammered the windshield like 1,000 restless fingers. Amelia gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, eyes darting between the road and the flickering clock on the dashboard. 2:17 a.m. The highway stretched out in front of her, an endless black ribbon swallowing the light. She told herself she wasn't running, just driving, but the tremor in her hand said otherwise. In the passenger seat, a small paper bag sat upright, carefully folded. Inside were two things, a silver locket and a crumpled note. She hadn't opened either since she left. She didn't have to. She knew what both meant. The radio crackled, catching fragments of an old song before fading back into static. For a moment, she considered turning it off completely, but the noise was better than the silence. Silence left room for memory, and memory had a cruel way of showing up uninvited. A flash of lightning split the sky, white and sudden, revealing her reflection in the glass. She didn't recognize the woman staring back, eyes hollow, jaw clenched, face older than she remembered. Maybe this was what it meant to start over, to lose who you were before you could become someone else. The car slowed as she reached a gas station, the only sign of life for miles. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Amelia stepped out, pulling her coat tighter against the cold. The air smelled of wet asphalt and diesel. Somewhere, a dog barked, then went quiet again. Inside the station, a man behind the counter looked up from a newspaper. "Rough night?" he asked. Amelia forced a thin smile. "You could say that." He nodded, not pushing further, just watching as she grabbed a bottle of water and paid in silence. When she turned to leave, she caught her reflection again, this time in the glass door. The storm outside raged, but for a split second, it looked like it was happening behind her eyes instead of beyond the glass. She stepped back into the rain. The paper bag on the seat waited, patient and accusing. She started the engine, headlights cutting through the dark. Whatever she was running from, it wasn't done with her yet. By morning the storm had eased, but the world still felt heavy. The road was lined with mist, soft and slow-moving, like the earth was trying to hide something beneath it. Amelia hadn't slept. Her phone buzzed twice during the night, both from the same number. She didn't answer. The first message was just a name. The second, a question. "Did you tell him?" She had stared at the screen until dawn, thumb hovering, heart pounding. Then she switched the phone off and kept driving. Hours later, she pulled into a small coastal town, one of those forgotten places that existed between postcards and memory. A handmade sign read "Welcome to Marin's Bay." The air smelled of salt and old stories. The streets were almost empty, except for a man sweeping the front of a diner and a woman walking her dog in a red raincoat. Amelia parked in front of a rundown motel, its neon sign blinking weakly in daylight. She booked a room under a false name. The clerk didn't ask questions, and she didn't offer explanations. Inside, the room was stale and dim. The wallpaper peeled like old skin, and the air conditioner rattled with every breath. She dropped her bag on the bed and finally opened the paper one. The silver locket caught the morning light. Inside was a photograph of a boy, maybe 6 years old, with a missing front tooth and the kind of grin that used to pull laughter out of her no matter how bad the day was. The note underneath was written in a hurried hand, "He deserves to know the truth." A knock at the door made her jump. She stuffed the locket back into the bag and opened the door a crack. A young woman stood there, maybe in her 20s, holding a clipboard. "Sorry to bother you," she said with a nervous smile. "We're doing a quick survey for local residents. Just a few questions." Amelia started to say she wasn't from around here, but then stopped. Something about the girl's eyes, wide, searching, uncertain, felt too familiar. "Sure," Amelia said, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "I've got a few minutes." The girl smiled and began. But as she did, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't about a survey at all. The girl's voice trembled slightly as she asked the usual questions: name, age, how long Amelia had lived in town, but her pen never moved. She wasn't writing anything down. When Amelia noticed, a thin current of unease crept under her skin. Then the girl looked up, eyes sharp now, all trace of nervousness gone. You left in a hurry, she said quietly. People noticed. Amelia froze. Excuse me? The girl took a step closer, her tone changing from polite to deliberate. He's been looking for you. 4 months. Something in the air shifted. The hum of the air conditioner, the dull sound of waves beyond the window, even the ticking of the wall clock, all seemed to fade. Amelia's breath caught. Who sent you? She asked. The girl hesitated. Someone who deserves to know why you disappeared. Amelia felt the old ache rise again, the same one that had driven her to the highway, to sleepless nights and unanswered messages. She closed the door halfway, suddenly aware of how small the room was, how close this stranger stood. You should go, Amelia said. You don't know what you're talking about. But the girl didn't move. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a photograph. It was the same boy from the locket, only older now, maybe 10, maybe 11, standing beside a man whose face Amelia hadn't seen in years. His expression was tired, but his hand rested protectively on the boy's shoulder. He asked me to find you, the girl said. He said you'd understand? Amelia's heart cracked open. The man in the photo, Rami, had been her anchor once. Until everything fell apart. Why now? She whispered. Because he's sick, the girl said. And the boy keeps asking about his mother. Amelia's hand went to her mouth. The world tilted, colors bleeding into each other. For a long moment she couldn't speak. Then, quietly, almost to herself, she said, He doesn't know? The girl shook her head. Not yet. But he will. With or without you. The words landed like a verdict. Amelia looked down at the photograph again. For the first time in years, she felt something other than fear, something raw, something dangerous. Maybe it was time to stop running. Amelia sat on the edge of the bed long after the girl left, the photograph burning in her hands. The motel clock ticked toward noon, but time felt suspended, thick with everything she had tried to bury. She could hear the ocean outside, steady, indifferent, like it knew how small her choices were compared to its pull. Rami was sick. The words replayed until they stopped sounding real. She imagined him in that small apartment they once shared, the kitchen always smelling of cardamom and rain-soaked air. He used to laugh when she oversalted the rice. He used to hold her when the world felt too loud. And now, the thought of him lying in a hospital bed made her chest tighten with something close to guilt. She reached for the locket again, running her thumb over the small dent near the clasp. It had survived every move, every escape. So why did she keep it if she wanted to forget? Maybe because part of her never did. The phone, still powered off since dawn, lay on the nightstand. For a long moment she stared at it, torn between dialing and disappearing again. Every reason she'd had for leaving, fear, shame, the lie she told to protect them all, still lived inside her. But now they felt smaller, weaker, next to the voice that whispered, He deserves to know the truth. A knock startled her again. This time, it wasn't the girl. Amelia, a man's voice said through the door. Please, just open it. Her heart slammed. She knew that voice, older, rougher, but his. She hesitated, every muscle locked in place. If she opened the door, everything she'd run from would come rushing back. The truth about why she left. The truth about who the boy really was. Rami, she said quietly, the name breaking in her throat. Please, he said again. I don't have much time. The room felt smaller, air thinning around her. She took one step toward the door, then stopped. Tears blurred her vision. Her hand trembled on the handle. Outside, the waves crashed harder against the shore, as if urging her to decide. Amelia took a deep breath. The door creaked open. Rami stood in the doorway, thinner than she remembered, his face hollow but his eyes sharp as ever. The hospital bracelet still clung to his wrist, the plastic catching the light. For a second, neither of them spoke. The silence was brutal, years of it pressing down on the small motel room until it felt like the walls were breathing with them. You look the same, he said finally, voice cracked. Except you don't. Amelia tried to answer, but her throat refused. He stepped inside, closed the door, and leaned against it like he was too tired to hold himself up. I didn't come here to fight, he said. I just needed to see you once. Before. He stopped, a cough racking through him. Before it's too late. She moved toward him on instinct, then stopped halfway. Why did you come now? Because your sister called me, he said. She told me about the boy. About your son. The word hung there, sharp and merciless. She felt it hit like a blow. Rami looked at her, searching. Is he mine? It was everything she'd feared and everything he deserved to know. She could lie again, say the timing didn't match, say she didn't know, but her body refused to betray the truth one more time. Her voice came out small but steady. Yes. Rami's eyes closed. A sound escaped him, half laugh, half sob. He sank onto the bed, shaking his head. All this time, he whispered. I would have stayed, Amelia. You know that, right? You didn't have to disappear. She knelt in front of him, tears spilling freely now. I couldn't stay. You were drowning. The business, your father, everything. You said you didn't want a family. You said you couldn't breathe. I said I was scared. He met her eyes, raw and open. You were supposed to tell me anyway. Her hand reached for his but hovered in the air, trembling. He has your eyes, she said quietly. Something broke in both of them. Rami leaned forward until their foreheads touched, breath shallow, uneven. I just wanted to see him, he said, almost pleading. Before I go. Amelia's heart clenched. The ocean roared outside like thunder. She finally took his hand. Then you will, she said. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady hum of machines and the slow rhythm of Rami's breathing. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, slicing the air into pale strips. Amelia sat beside his bed, her hands folded in her lap, watching the rise and fall of his chest as if it were something fragile she could hold together just by looking. Her son stood near the doorway, uncertain, small in his school uniform. He didn't know the full story, only that a man who used to be a friend wanted to meet him. Rami smiled when he saw the boy, really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes and made him look, for a fleeting second, like the man she'd once loved by the sea. Hey there, he said softly. You like soccer? The boy nodded, shy but curious. Good, Rami whispered, eyes glinting. You've got your mother's stubborn streak. That's a gift. Don't ever lose it. Amelia looked away, blinking hard. She hadn't cried since that morning at the motel. Now, the tears came soundlessly. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Rami's forehead. He caught her hand midair and held it. His grip was weak but certain. You did the right thing, he murmured. You saved him. Even if it broke us. Maybe I broke both of us, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Maybe. But look what we built instead. His eyes flicked to the boy. He's worth it. The words landed somewhere deep, painful and gentle all at once. When he drifted back into sleep, Amelia stayed beside him until the room dimmed. The boy eventually leaned against her shoulder, quiet and trusting. Outside, the evening light spilled gold across the parking lot, touching everything like forgiveness. When the nurse came to check his pulse, Amelia already knew. She sat there a long time, holding his hand until the warmth faded, then stood and walked to the window. The ocean stretched out in the distance, calm and endless. Later, as she led her son outside, the wind picked up and carried the faint sound of waves. He looked up at her, eyes bright. Who was he, Mama? She smiled softly. Someone who loved us, she said. Once, like the sea loves the shore.